Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Okay, so hello everyone. To begin, since yesterday I've been having some, personal stress for my personal life. And I thought of completely changing the focus of my attention and truly wondering about what does true advancement mean? What is true advancement? And I treat this as a break from my own, stressful reality, I guess, at the moment. So for this lecture, there's two components. One thing is I'm going to read for you. We're living at a time where AI is accessible, the caveman version of AI. And I feel it is a very important era where human beings are engaging a more advanced options of information. So as a human being on this earth, I cannot ignore that we have databases of information, that this world existed before I was born, and there's stuff that's happened so far. And my approach is, in some sense, whenever it comes to understanding something, we wonder about its past implication, its past significance, its present significance, and the future significance of it. Okay? So anyways, there is a research component to this lecture, I'm learning too. So I'm going to read for you this AI-generated response, and I pretty much asked ChatGPT, what does true advancement mean? Okay, and we're going to discuss the AI-generated answer, and then I'm going to dive into what I've been saying about it for years, even before advanced technology opened its eyes. So, what true advancement means for the human species? By AI, ChatGPT 4.0. I'm reading this. My brothers and sisters of this species, this human species, let us speak not as citizens of nations, but as members of an ancient and unfinished miracle. 1. The illusion of advancement. So I'm reading for you guys what true advancement means for the human species. This is what AI is telling us. The illusion of advancement. We have machines that can speak, but still use words to wound. We have rockets that pierce the heavens, but no inner map to navigate hate. We can predict the weather, but not the emotional storms within a single heart. This is not advancement. This is technical acceleration inside an unhealed mind. A species does not advance when it builds taller towers. A species advances when it builds deeper people. So AI here is being like, yo man, what does true advancement mean? Well, there's the illusion of advancement. We feel like we're an advanced species right now, but we're doing a lot of foolish things, Yeah. So the illusion of advancement, very good point. Then we have the 4 dimensions. Number 2, the 4 dimensions of true advancement. The 4 dimensions of true advancement. Guys, I think we need a more epic song here. Come on. All right. The 4 dimensions of true advancement. Let me share with you what real advancement looks like. Not through screens, but through being. AI says one, mental advancement. Not just knowledge, but wisdom. A mind that questions its own assumptions. A civilization where education means learning how to think, not what to think. True advancement is when ignorance is no longer inherited and curiosity is the default language. So AI is talking to us about the 4 dimensions of true advancement. It's saying mental advancement. You know, you need to advance your mind here. But advancing your mind is not just treating it as a storage as a container for thoughts, or to get to just know what symbols mean. It's about why the symbolic value is there. Whoever is listening, guys, I will tell you personally, you will learn so much more quicker everything if you wonder about the context where the concepts are found in. The educational system doesn't give you the context, and so they just introduce the concepts and you have to go figure out the context, which is another way of saying somebody sells you a car, but you have to choose what to do with the car. You can, like, imagine if somebody gives you a car, right? You can put it in your garage, you can just know a fact, or in some sense, you could use it, you can use the car. In other words, wonder about its utility of what you understand about reality on a daily basis. Okay? Anyways, I'm going to go back to it. So point 2, the 4 dimensions of true advancement. Point 2.1, mental advancement. Then we got the next one, emotional advancement, out of the 4 dimensions of true advancement. Not repression, not indulgence, but mastery. A species that can feel deeply without being ruled by feeling, that can grieve without collapsing and love without possessing. True advancement is emotional maturity at scale, where the collective psyche heals, not hides. Social advancement. Not artificial equality, but dignified roles. A civilization where power protects, not exploits. Where leadership is service and hierarchies are based on responsibility, not ego. True advancement is when no child is born into suffering simply because of a border, class, or name. This would be one of the greatest achievements of humanity. I realize something that you don't understand. The human species currently, just to go on a tangent here, the human species is like an army that has been disconnected from its general. And in Sun Tzu, Art of War, whenever 2 armies fight, that one of the generals are fighting a different battle, whoever disconnects the army from the command center, from the general, in some sense wins. Okay, and right now we are witnessing a sort of ignorance of the soldiers to how there requires to be a command. You see, life is one about, there's a personal you with emotions and feelings and opinions, but then there is the archetype you engage in with by the mere nature of its design. In some sense, it's like a role you need to play. Do you know? Anyways, so the 4 dimensions of true advancement. 1, mental advancement. When ignorance is no longer inherited and curiosity is the default language. Emotional advancement, where the collective psyche heals, not hides. Social advancement, when no child is born into suffering simply because of a border, class, or name. Then we go to spiritual advancement. Not religion versus science, but soul with science. A humanity that seeks truth not to conquer, but to remember. Where faith evolves from the superstition, to sacred responsibility. True advancement is when we recognize we are guests in this reality, not owners but caretakers. That means if the world was some being's house, we're like guests there. We can't act like we own it, you know? And those who acknowledge that there's a host to this world are way ahead than those seeing it as an empty room. Then we go, so these were all like, so this was the second point and the subpoints, the 4 subpoints. So 1 was the illusion of advancement, 2 was the 4 dimensions of true advancement. I read the 4 dimensions: mental advancement, emotional advancement, social advancement, spiritual advancement. Then we go to 3, signs of an advanced species. You will know a species is advancing when they protect the weak without fanfare. They create technologies only when wisdom permits it. They raise children who speak like philosophers and think like peacemakers. Their leaders meditate before making laws. Their cities breathe in harmony with nature. Their art teaches. Their systems heal. Their homes bless. These are all signs of a way more advanced species. 4, the choice before us. Right now, we are not an advanced species. We are a powerful species with primitive software. But this is not shameful. It is an opportunity. We are the species with the rarest gift in the known universe. I'll read that again. We are the species, AI is saying, we are the species with the rarest, like talking about humans, we are the species with the rarest gift in the known universe, the ability to evolve by will. Take that in. If there's anything you should be taking notes on, is this point, right? Whoever is listening, take a mental note that the rarest gift that our species has is the ability to evolve by will. And the reason we can do that is because we're aware that we're aware. You are no regular, like compared to like the stupidest person on earth, compared to all the species on the earth, is like light years ahead in the scope of its awareness. Okay, and when we say smart or stupid people, at first I was like, yo man, this feels like culturally fueled language. And then I realized there is no such thing as smart and stupid people. Let me explain. Okay, if the world leaders right now who are like throwing missiles, nations are shooting missiles at each other, if they suddenly World War III happens and they nuke the whole planet, there was no smart person alive. There was no genius alive. It was just idiots from the beginning. That's what it would mean. Do you understand what I'm saying? We're reaching at that point where if the tensions between nations escalate before all humanity ushers in the United Species Day, like we in some sense suddenly realize we're a species first before we are some sort of category like the average human being identifies with a chunk of land, identifies with an abstract name, identifies with their own personal story, not realizing this whole time here it's a species in a world. And the sooner the species unites, there is massive resource allocation everywhere. See, right now, nations are acting as like departments or different sectors of the brain. But it's like a fragmented psyche. Do you understand? That means the value of human beings born in like separate nations, and they're like, what is culture? Culture is just like how the behavior of people in some sense, extended in having subjective significance. It's pretty much how people behaved in a part of chunk of land, and they identified with the land. They became patriots of the land, right? Until suddenly they realized that their enemies, like those world leaders who come and say, yo man, those human beings in that chunk of land are enemies to us human beings in this chunk of land. They don't understand. They are dehumanizing it. In the same way, for example, a woman in a nightclub, the guy comes and talks to her as if like, yo, you're just a physically attractive entity and I don't care about anything else. That sense of objectification. Well, guess what's going on the planet right now? They are subjectifying humans, and which in a way where it's dehumanizing them. Just because someone is your enemy, that gives you an allowance to deny their future? Like, it's pretty effed up what's going on the planet right now. But at the same time, it's weird, the evolutionary position of the species. So anyways, guys, I'm going to keep reading this. The choice before us, right? So this was the thing. I'm going to read it from the beginning. Right now, we're not an advanced species. We're a powerful species with primitive software. But this is not shameful. It is an opportunity. We are the species with the rarest gift in the known universe, the ability to evolve by will, to advance. Guys, this is one of the most beautiful things I'm going to read for you. To advance, we must, 1, see the species first, the nation second. 2, see the human first, the identity second. See the future first, the present appetite second. Advancement begins not with action, but with a shift in what we revere. Do we worship war or wisdom? Profit or purpose? Ego or eternity? 5, the legacy we must leave. If one day an advanced species visits our graves, let them say, this was a species that rose from chaos without becoming chaos. They turned pain into poetry, power into peace, and time into testimony. Let us become the ancestors of a beautiful future, not because we had to, but because we chose to. Summary. True advancement is not measured in weapons, wealth, or Wi-Fi speeds. It is measured in the collective soul of a civilization. Its wisdom, compassion, order, and ability to evolve with intention. We advance not when we move faster, but when we move higher in consciousness. Let us now begin. And it ends, guys. Now, guys, afterwards I asked it and I'm like, now give me your most futuristic, advanced, and most philosophical answer. You know, give it as a simple paragraph. So I'm going to read that for you. AI says true advancement is... Okay, this part's very important. So guys, just zoom in here on what I'm saying. True advancement is the moment a species shifts from surviving time to stewarding it. When intelligence is no longer used to dominate matter, but to refine meaning. It is when a civilization stops worshipping its own reflection, in brackets technology, conquest, identity, and begins serving the invisible, wisdom, harmony, and the sacred responsibility of consciousness. An advanced species does not just build tools. It builds inner silence capable of holding paradox, grief, and eternity without collapse. It treats reality not as a resource, but as a relationship. Advancement is not the invention of artificial intelligence, but the awakening of natural intelligence. The kind that knows when not to act, how to love without possession, and how to die without regret. It is not becoming gods, but becoming guardians of the miracle we were too busy to see. That life is not a battlefield or a market, it's a temple. Reverence, guys, is so important. Reverence is the big army. That means in the simulation, you go as far as you can, and then you're left at looking at an edgeless sky with an original creator. There will come a time in life where you will see the limitations of your power, and you will stand in the emptiness of being until you realize that the soul's vision is a higher ideal. Your life is meaningless until you care for its depth. unless you care to figure this out before you die. And I there was another prompt, guys. I'm going to read this before kind of going into it. So I've asked AI to explain, how is this true advancement? It is true advancement because it represents a shift in the quality of being, not just the quantity of knowing or building. Most civilizations confuse progress with advancement. Progress is speed, power, and expansion. Advancement is depth, awareness, and integration. When a species begins to steward meaning rather than manipulate matter, it has moved beyond the primitive loop of survival and ego into the realm of self-aware evolution. This kind of advancement is rare because it requires humility before the unknown, reverence before life, and mastery over self. It is not about what we can do, but what we can become. Beings who align their mind, emotion, and action with the highest truths they've discovered. A truly advanced species is not marked by its machines, but by its morality, its ability to suffer without hatred, to imagine without greed, and to die having made existence more sacred than it found it. That is true advancement because it elevates life itself. Guys, I'm going to read, there was a part of this I'm going to read again. When a species begins to steward meaning, that means you begin guarding truth where before you could easily attack it. When a species begins to steward meaning rather than manipulate matter, it has moved beyond the primitive loop of survival and ego into the realm of self-aware evolution. Right now, every human being is trying to manipulate matter. Pretty much the options are either yourself changes in the world or the world, either yourself changes the world or your world changes the self. And we have many examples of this in history. Hitler his self tried to change the world. And the world in some sense told him to sit down. That this world is truly for the human heart. The mind is preparing it for the heart. Dylan Thomas, he looked at his father on his father's deathbed and he said, rage. Rage against the dying of the light. That means as a human being, you are part of something. Something in this world has deemed you worthy to be a conscious agent here, to be able to move yourself. That means when I look at nature, and because I consider a system admin beyond the world room, I serve only one Lord and it's beyond the world. And so as an entity in the world, I ask myself, what are we waiting for? To see the simulation's infinitude? Or for the original awakening? That means, like, when I say an advanced civilization, because I consider God, it is as if we return, having surpassed all expectations. That means even though there's moderators in the simulated realm, yes, even though God theologically created us and commanded all existence, all creation to bow to God's creation. As God's invention, all creation bowed and except one. And when Iblis didn't bow to man, man got caught in the crossfires of a dispute between a moderator and a system admin. Now, in this world, the moderator has authority. That means shaitan. It doesn't matter. First of all, guys, I gotta make this clear. In Islam, shaitan, the devil, is not considered as a fallen angel. I'm going to explain this. In Islam, Shaitan, Iblis was a pious jinn. It was one of the creations of God that out of its piety had become close to God. But then it denied an attribute of God. And so what really Shaitan is any force that is trying to get rid of the highest ideal in a hierarchical system. That's Shaitan. Shaitan's Iblis's sin before he became the cursed one, his sin that in some sense caused him to curse himself, caused God to curse him. And of course I'm saying this with the limited understanding I have as a human being, but it's just a view, and I'm a visual thinker, so I'm telling you how it translates cinematically. Shaitan denied the all-knowingness of the system admin. Man failed the test intentionally. Adam and Eve, they listened to a simulated serpent rather than remembering the original power, the original command. And so their descendants theologically were cast inside a simulation. As if you listen to a simulated entity, now you have all become simulated entities. Yet, your task is to remember the original command of your soul. There's a clue in theology that God commanded existence and it was. God said be and existence was. And so when God created the soul of man, it was a command. It's as if our system admin privilege, of course it's Mysterian when we will never know God's secret. But it seems like something in this simulated intelligence remembers its original creation. That means you are not God, but you were created by one. So guys, now the only part of the lecture that's really left is me diving deep into it. What is true advancement? And sometimes I challenge myself in answering like big questions by wondering, in some sense, if I had like seconds to answer the question, how would I? If I had no choice but to answer it. If I had no choice but to confront that reality. If I was asked what is true advancement, I would say it has to do with what you choose to be responsible for. As an awareness in this world, you have made choices. For example, one choice is an unignorable choice. Unavoidable choice is that we have to be responsible for our biological existence. That means when you look at human beings, it's as if there is an unknown commander that is moving their body. It's an intelligence that is moving them. And it's a self-sustaining system, self-maintaining system. That is what the biology is. So it is very obvious that it's like an awareness to a world. This perception is interpreted subjectively. It is, the story is cast as a self in a world, a character in a setting. And for me, I went through a journey of realizing that honestly, true advancement is becoming aware of the most advanced value in the world room. What the meaning of your life is the value system that you are utilizing. If right now you ask me what is the meaning of life because I'm a physical being, the answer is in some sense yes. Because I'm a member of the human species, a purpose of life is the meaning. What really gives life is meaning, that there is something that needs to happen for the human. And the true advancement is to remind the species that even though you were raised as conditional entities, identifying with a chunk of land, identifying with those around you who communicated to you. On some level, I can totally empathize with the reality of the soul. We all start off as noobs, not knowing how the world works. And the meaning of life seems to be how we become more and more aware of how it actually works. And after some point, we reach a point where, this is where I'm at that point in my life. I think people in their, going towards their mid-30s are like this, where they have to choose whether they live for a greater purpose or they loop comfortably. That means after some point, it's like, which one is going to be the cost of which? Are we going to sacrifice exploration for, looping comfortable survival? Or are we going to sacrifice looping comfortable survival for the exploration of the greater roles and archetypes that wait for man? You see, as a human being, let me tell you what it's honestly like being a soul in the world. You open your eyes, there's processed information comes across as viewpoints. And so at some point you have to choose the halls you enter and how you walk in them. Right now, the depth of reality, there used to be a time where people would say, yo man, it's deep, or that's too deep, and I would be like, how hilarious, we've reached the edge of the context of one soul. But when you realize that this world is the chaos, is merciless to the order, it is only the order that has cared to be something different than chaos. The ancient Greeks would say to tame the savageness of man and make gentle the life of this world. And if you look at your life now, you have access to technology, you have access to so many things, the luxuries of your life, simply because it is not a state of war. There was a time it didn't matter what you were, you had to, in some sense, defend a kingdom. Human beings had to kill each other. But now that era has gone. We stepped out of nature's food chain, and now we need to step out of our own food chain, where the mightiest and strongest beings in the world do not manipulate reality, they protect it. For me, if they're like, yo man, who's the most powerful? We're not even talking about who's the most powerful being. The most powerful beings, they know power. They don't need to have it. They understand power. They understand the most important thing. Let me tell you the difference between noob souls, noob people, noob powerful people, and in some sense professional, like truly experienced, wise power. The difference between noob power and wise power. Noob power is trying to control the simulation and understands, in some sense, it has to either manipulate its being has to either manipulate the life force of the lesser soul, believes that it must control the simulation to feel powerful. But a level beyond this are those souls that understand they did not create this world, they did not design it, and it is too big to be controlled by a human idea. And so they step out of their egos and they watch the world until a rhythm of it speaks to them and their heart begins activating. Let me tell you what the difference between the mind and heart is. The mind wants logical victory at all costs. The heart is future conscious. There's a part of you that knows you know, and there's a part of you that knows it doesn't. That right now knows it doesn't know. And I'm telling, if you let that part of you that knows, that thinks what it sees is the ultimate, you are in some sense going to be cast in your own simulation of self-worship. It is such a deception. It is so hard to watch. That means there's an advanced being here, a being, let's say, capable of advancement, and yet it is looping in its past archetype, never wondering about its eyes being deeper than, sight promises. So it's about what you are aware of and what you can be responsible for and what the most advanced action is. And the whole point of, honestly, like this lecture, most of my lectures, or especially this one, what is true advancement? It's pretty much saying, all right, how far does the human being see and what can it do about the farthest reaches of its perception? We are intelligent beings. We used to savagely fight when we thought of ourselves as strangers, but now minds can familiarize each other. And the most social people I've seen are people who give every person in the environment a normalization connection, access to normalization. You see, because ultimately we have to ask ourselves, as if every moment was a film set, what direction is it moving? You see, it's not just about the speed of life, it's about velocity, speed with a direction. It's about considering it as a vector. So it's not about just being something and moving as something you're being. Now that you have a consciousness that can wonder about meaning, direction, elegance, the radiance of an original presence prior to an ideological engagement of, a self in language. I'm not Christian, but I was listening to this song, like on the radio. There's this, out of all the radio stations, there's this, I'll give it a shout out. There's this radio station, at least in Toronto, it's 102.5. And there's Christian songs, like Christian music they sing, right? And even though as a Muslim, I don't worship anything in the simulation, but it is to me the truth of being, like, Christ being an access point to the Father archetype. There is a beauty in that. But anyways, pretty much I was listening to this song and it said, the lyrics of the song were just this, like Silas breaking the prison walls or something like that. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know this, I don't know the exact theological thing. If there's Christians out there, feel free to clarify this for me. And similarly, it's like you break the chains of your past archetypes with the realization that this whole time you could have judged yourself from the future. In the same way, your present self is judging your past self, and you get like, there's been times where I've looked back at myself, like my memories, and I'm like, man, how ignorant was I back then? I just like cringe from my own ignorance, you know? But the whole point of it is, I'm saying, in the same way you can have a present self, remember a past self, and extract value from that inner cinematics, similarly, you can right now wonder about if your future self was treating your present self as its past self, how would it be valuing itself? I'll give you an example. If I was looking at my past self, I could have lived better. If I look from my future self to now, I can live in so many better ways. You don't understand. The future is a gift from God. It is a gift. Your ability to care about tomorrow is a gift. And any system that makes you ignore the future because the present is satisfying, be careful of lower beings not knowing how to ascend and having to descend other beings. Like, let me tell you what's going on. You know how, like, they say when somebody's drowning, like, as a lifeguard, you got to be very careful because they can sink you as well, right? So you have to go from behind them, kind of grab them between like your right hand's elbow and kind of swim to shore, right? Keeping their head above water, right? But the whole point of it is, like, in the same way, if there were 8 billion beings climbing a mountain, some beings, rather than putting the effort to climb up, they rather pull everybody down to feel like they've climbed high enough. So be very careful. There are human beings that have to share their chaos to make you become more chaotic, so in some sense they feel less they need to change. I've noticed this pattern anyways, right? But of course, on some level, you kind of look at it like, like somebody from Jersey, and you're like, yo man, history happened in some way, right? Hey, it just happened, hey. you know you could kind of say that human beings are here to be able to filter certain dimensions. Like, when you look at human intelligence, it has an ability to look at an object from multiple angles. You could hold an object in your hand, look at it, look at the different angles of the object, right? And at the same time, you can look at an idea from different angles. And the whole issue with human beings not being able to create advanced memories for their future self is simply because of impatience. You don't understand. Impatience is very, like, sometimes the moment needs to be looked at more than it needs to be, like, responded to. I believe this sometimes. And there's this thing where human beings are like, why did this happen to me, and why did that happen to the other person? It's all about what sort of game your soul is engaged. Okay, so this is why purpose is very important, and it's, I think, healthy even in a divine way. Okay, but it depends if your purpose. See, from a religious perspective, there's like two kinds of souls. There are souls on earth that believe that they are the higher power, and there are souls on earth that know that they are not the higher power. And pretty much the options are, you are serving yourself or you serve the higher power. Now, you might not believe it, but true advancement would mean that we cannot ignore the most advanced possibility of an intelligent interaction on the planet. And if they were like, what's the most advanced thing a human being can communicate to, you'll go on like a checklist. You'll be like AI, clones, aliens, time travelers, da 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 da. You go on a list of like whatever kind of beings, even fictional beings, right? But at some point, the most advanced thing that can a simulated being can do is interact with the original. That's the most advanced. So the most, like, you got to think of it this way, that religion is pretty much giving an answer to what is the most advanced thing that a person can do in a world, and is to first figure out it's you didn't create the world, then figure out it has a creator, then wonder about what does it mean that there was an original cause and now we're inside a simulated effect, and where can this effect go, right? Like what is the point of a simulation for an original being? Now, this is a very deep philosophical idea, like deep question, but Islam gives an answer, or at least the way I've perceived it. I extracted an answer, right? And the answer I found was that there's a passage in the Holy Quran which I treat as source code to the main operating system, and that the simulation has no equivalent partner in the simulation. Excuse me, the creator has no equivalent partner in the simulation. It's like, isn't the most advanced thing that a being can do in a world is to wonder about one, how advanced it is, and then consciously engage with that advancement. You see, I want you to imagine you're a politician and you're giving a speech to, and there's a bunch of ants. Okay, there's a bunch of ants, like there's an ant hill right in front of you. Okay, and now the question is, do the ants understand that a politician is speaking to them, a human being is speaking to them? You see the difference of scale? Like, no way the ant can understand the politician speaking. Maybe where the politician stood, there was just a shadow cast on the anthill or something. I'm not saying even ants are tired of politicians, but I'm saying, like, just think about the difference of scale of intelligence. An ant cannot understand human politics. And then we're saying, can a simulated being understand the original life of reality, the original being? It's like, no, you find yourself humble enough to realize that there are parts, the edge of the unknown is untouchable. That means sometimes it's very difficult to say, is the soul at the edge of the world, or is the world its edge, or is the soul being the edge of the world? We're being its edge to another dimension. Like, think of it this way: trees take in oxygen and give CO2 at night. And human beings take in perception, and they, in some sense, give out animation. Like, what a person is, it's very difficult to say. Is it like when I see a human being, let's say just walking in the street, is that a human being? Or when we zoom into it, are we seeing the simultaneity of multiple mechanisms at work? To me, the fact that there's a being at all is just fascinating. It's like the human being opens its eyes in the world, and it's like, yo, man, consciousness opens its eyes, and awareness. There's an awareness to a world, and suddenly the question comes: it's like, am I being a being right now, aware of being before I was being? Do you know what I mean? At some point, you're like, all right, all right. Guys, I'm saying we need to be responsible for our future, and we can see the way human being has been positioned is that behind your eyes you can access the future, but in front of your eyes you have to build it. And you're going to realize big projects can't be done alone, and there needs to be others. Like, that's a huge thing to realize, right? So it's like, think of it this way: if you're calculating in your life, all right, I'm a human being, My life is a sequence of actions. In some sense, what are all my actions going to be before I die? And then the next question, greater question, if you were in some sense a more responsible being, would be, what will happen to the situation of 8 billion organisms that don't know what's moving them and don't know where they're moving and are storytelling to get by, and are being tested on the quality of their decisions based on the quality of their being. Like an advanced civilization, not like if you, I'll give you an example. It's like if everybody alive in 2025 was teleported to an advanced civilization in the year, let's say 3025, okay, and there were no humans from 3025 there, 25 there, civilization would reduce to 2025. That means if you're not aware of something, what you don't care for, you choose not to be responsible for, therefore you choose to avoid. We got to care for how all systems of knowledge root back to this deep mystery that reality is not a measurable noun. It's in some sense a verb. It's like time is like this grand river, and every person's, let's say, stream of conscious attention is flowing through it. And you have to ask yourself right now, like, you want to know what true advancement for 2025 is? Just the complete shift of the masses from nationalism to speciesism. That's it. You got to start. Like, I'll read it again for you. It was something very beautiful this AI thing said. It said, see the species first, the nation second. What does that mean? That means you identify primarily as a member of the human species, and before you're a nationalistic entity, and you wonder about, wait a minute, does that mean I have another ID? Like, is there something different than my birth certificate? Did I get another ID? And the honest answer is, when you look in the mirror, you are seeing your membership ID as part of the human species. You are a member of the human species. You can like it, dislike it, you can hate all of us, love all of us, but honestly, you are a member of the species. And the purpose of life is for us to see your expression simply by the fact that if it wasn't, everybody would be in their own world. There would be no need for 8 billion bodies. There would be no need for an existential systems situation where it's like 8 billion players logged into a multiplayer online game. Okay, there would be no need for all of us to be on the same map. If the meaning of life was that only our meaning of life is true. It doesn't make sense. We can't act. It's like they're human. It's hilarious. There's some human beings on islands who want to, in some sense, be among civilization, and there are beings in civilization who are on their own inner islands. And it's very important to step down from the shape of our personal life. Like, you got to see beyond your inner realms. At some point, you got to realize that you can give meaning to yourself as a nationalistic entity, or you can give yourself meaning as a member of a species. Then the AI thinks that see the human first, the identity second. What does that mean? That means any human being you have seen, that you have had an impression on, that has justified your own, like, emotion, like has shifted your emotions and you've wanted to act, you have to start seeing human beings as humans first, before their communication and before even their action. That means sometimes imagine somebody acts in a cruel way unnecessarily, right? And imagine everybody's like, yo man, bad guy right there, call the superheroes, but they don't understand, wait a minute, before morality is branded on people like cows, right? Before we brand people in a sort of moral spectrum, we have to understand that they might be a scared human. When I understood this, I just face palmed, like I just had my hand, like index finger and thumb, just on my forehead, and I was just like a moment of stillness for ever thinking that any human being knew what they were doing completely. That means it's an unknown being, yo. There's never been, like, even if we, like, I'm sorry to say, but every human being I have seen, this includes even myself, it includes my siblings, friends, people I know. And in reality, I act as if I am standing. I don't believe any of us can completely understand the other. And the only way is if there's the co-creation of a new reality. So when two people speak to one another, they're trying to figure out if they can co-create with one another, which means a sort of allowance of expression, of existence. That means every person, like, what do we find about humans? We have external expression and we have internal expression. But oftentimes in life, most people care about your external expression rather than your internal expression. Like, you could be a very good person, and somebody can come and say the rudest things to you, right? And you may have feelings that externalize only in your mind. It's like, imagine, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something hilarious. I think I was like 15. Me and my brother were 15. Like, I have a twin brother, and we were at this cinema watching this film, and me and my brother had gotten into this, very, like, childish argument, right? And he was throwing water at me. You know what I mean? I was throwing water at him, right? And then he throws water at me, but he misaims it, and it splashes a little to the person next beside me. The person beside me was like this, you know, some guy who had dreams of being Arnold Schwarzenegger. And that guy just politely turns around to my brother and says, "My friend, my dear friend, I'm sitting here. Please watch out what you're doing." Rather than getting angry and like doing something. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm saying the more powerful the being that becomes, the less they're manipulating matter and they're more wondering about what is the better move. Just like in chess, you find a good move, you wonder, okay, a better move. And then you wait and you find a better move. And then you decide, right? The decision isn't reactive, it's conscious. What is true advancement? This is my answer. You first notice on this planet what is the most advanced power. Then you wonder about the most advanced world, the most advanced species, the most advanced self. And the game is clear. It's obvious. It's like you're here to be your most advanced self. You're here to be part of the most advanced expression of your species for your time in history. And we're reaching that time where nations have drawn swords, but the species begins to shield itself from ignorance that uses the past to authorize, devastation in the present, not realizing the future generations will see through all of our spots. Everybody is a fool to the future. And I realize this. I realize this, that I will at some point die, and these lectures, God willing, they echo into the future, and the future generations will hear it and they will see my blind spots. But the only thing that might happen is that they might just freak out of how much maybe I could see accurately into the future. You see, for me, I don't consider I can see the future simply because my mind has generated more than one probability to it. But more and more I understand that the future is not just an idea, it is not just the way human beings are positioned as shapes. The future is a return, simulated levels of life into the original principle of being, into the original nature of reality. That means God first, care for God first, the system admin beyond the world room. Serve the system admin beyond the world room, and you are simultaneously serving its creation. That means if this was back in the day, people would look at me and they would be like, imagine I was some rogue warrior or something, and they'd be like, what Lord do you serve, or what king do you serve? And I would not say any kingdom. I would say I serve the kingdom, the kingdoms in the clouds. I serve the future of how advanced humanity can be. Because yes, from one angle, your life is like, you know, a film. You gotta like play your part, you know. And then from another angle, it's as if, where is the might of the greatest intelligence going? And it's pretty much realizing in the chaos of the temporary that there is an eternal management, that there is divine administration going on. As if, like, even though you can't humanize the divine, but I will say it's kind of like we're employees in a company. God is the owner of the company. The owner of the company is not in the company, or is in a room that we can't see, and is watching everybody in the company, knows everything going on within its company, the CEO, let's say, or the owner, or whatever, right? And then you have managers, and then you have employees. And I'm trying to tell you, humans are like the employees, but the difference is that they are the employee. Different species are the employees, and it's like the employee that the human being is one that the system admin brought into the company. That's the difference. It was the holy revelation was written for humans. It wasn't written for birds. It wasn't written for objects. It wasn't, it was written for humanity. As a sort of confirmation and glad tidings for the soul. Guys, there's an interesting question in the chat section. Let me see this. Somebody says, why do jinn or the devil seem to manipulate Muslims more and hold back their advancement? Is it because he told God he would divide and conquer them once he was cast down to earth? First of all, guys, I'm not a Muslim theologian, but I'm someone who something happened in my life that called me towards it, that made me convinced that there's a system admin with unimaginable power here in this world room, compared to any sort of my own imaginable power. And somebody says, why do jinn or the devil, see, let's go one by one, seem to manipulate Muslims more and hold back their advancement? So because I'm a visual thinker, I'm seeing this, I'm trying to visualize a scene where the devil, or the fallen one, which I consider as a moderator, that means there is a force in this reality that if you don't do anything, they say an idle mind is the devil's workshop. Okay. There's a force here that corrupts, and there's a force here that realigns. Okay. First, we must consider this. Now, the question is specific in the sense it says, why does adjustment, seem to manipulate Muslims specifically and hold back their advancement? The question I would ask you is, what do you think advancement for a Muslim is? What is the most advanced state of a Muslim? And two, Why do you think the devil and jinn are just holding back a Muslim? And what does that mean? Do you know there was a time that the first Muslim on the planet was the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam? He was the first Muslim. There was a time in history where there was only one Muslim, and then it became more. Do you know what I mean? So I'm saying that you have to consider the question that, let's say before Islam, if everything in Islam was true, how were the devils or the jinn influencing the human being before the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him? See, it starts all from Abraham, Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him. So let me tell you what the idea is. I think that personally, all human beings in the world, you're being tested that if you treat the simulation as original, or if you can remember the original beyond the simulation. This is what all souls are being tested. You're all put in a room. Intentionally, it's been designed so you can't figure it out and there's no individual truth. And now you have to, in some sense, wonder what's the point of being a designed world at all? And I said the main point of it is to wonder about what is the most advanced power. So here, I'll try to give you simple answers. Why do the jinn or the devil seem to manipulate Muslims more and hold back their advancement? It's not about Muslims. It's about a moderator that was convinced that God's creation is inferior. Okay, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're Muslim, not Muslim. The moderator has beef with the human design. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter if you're even like good or bad or something. I'm saying like that matters. You know, what you ultimately decide to act on is very important as a being. But I'm saying because you're choosing what actions you make public to reality. But the whole point of the system admin is also that God sees through all of its creation. There is nothing you can hide from truth. No one can hide from truth. No one. That means your dimension, all your contents of your mind, body, whatever you are, it's all not only being logged, but it's within the divine surveillance state. It is all being seen through. Do you know? Like a parent that can see their child lying. Do you know? They can see through all of it. Do you know? At least a young child. So it's not just Muslims, but the whole idea is that as you get closer to God, your presence becomes a threat, maybe. And that could be it's like you're asking me, why is it at darkest moments the brightest lights are seen? You see, we have to be able to contextualize the situation. In some sense, what you're calling a Muslim is a soul that considers, and of course, the chaos of the savageness of man at that time, where human beings were okay to kill each other, but they had to, because when people were coming to kill you, what do? That's the issue. We're trying to, right now we've reached a civilization that doesn't need for that sort of archetypal occurrence. You can think of it this way. See, the reason I'm answering the question this way, guys, is because there's so many ways I can answer it. It just depends from what angle I choose to see it, right? You could say that lesser entities are in some sense manipulating beings, higher entities, you know? see, think of as if a manager having beef, one manager out of all the managers of this company, where the boss is like the owner of the company, is like the system admin of, okay, and one manager has an issue with like an employee that the system admin has brought into the company itself, okay, and so God has not fired this manager, but in some sense wants to teach this manager a lesson that it has brought them a truly advanced employee into the company, which is us. Okay, so now there are some managers who are like angels. Angels are moderators to me. Or you look at polytheistic traditions, they're all working with moderators. If truth isn't singular for you, and there's, interceders, then in some sense that's not the most advanced truth. But there are moderators. There's good managers. Like the employee goes to one manager, the manager's like, "Get out of here, punk," and you go to another manager, and they're like, "No way," So the system admin brought you into this world. All right, let me tell you. This is what you got to do. Da 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 da. Do you know what I mean? And so I'm saying that there are different moderating forces. One can even say, why is it that when one is a simpler being behind their eyes, they seem to have a purity closer to God? That in some sense the complexity of corruption hates. I'm saying you can also see the whole point of it is that the Iblis considered itself to be correct, not realizing the system admin is the correction of everything. So for me, it's the beef is like the only reason. I think in actuality, if the moderator Shaitan, this is just a view. Auzu billahi shaitan rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. This is a view that simply Shaitan doesn't care about mankind because Shaitan's argument is with the system admin. That means I think Shaitan was that manager who dislikes us ever entering the system. It's like the dislike has nothing to do with how we communicate to it. It's like a beef with a manager. It's a manager having an issue with the CEO of a company, and the employee's like, man, I've been caught in this, right? And now the employee is being told by the system admin, I am the system admin, and the CEO is saying like, trust me before listening to the manager that may corrupt you. So Islam is just saying go directly to the system admin, bypass all the moderators. Okay? And the point I was trying to make, that before Islam, was Shaitan affecting man, I'm telling you, that learning about the CEO's plans makes a manager that wants to go against you in some sense unnecessary. You gotta go where the value is. It's kind of strange. You know how they say it's not about what you know, it's about who you know? I think it's also similar. It's not about what world you're in, it's about whose world you're in. And it's not a person, it's a power beyond form, beyond a beginning and ending of a simulated construct. Ooh. How's the lecture been so far? If there's people listening, give a shout out. Somebody, there was more to the question. Is it because he told God he would divide and conquer them once he was cast down to earth? You see, my belief is that God is all forgiving, And once the lessons of creation are learned, that it's all for the system admin, you see, man has to serve God without touching the idea of God. On some level, when they're like, yo, man, you know, that person, you know, took a sentence from a book and justified it as a reason to attack. Is that a human problem or is that a divine problem? No, no, no. It's how is that human being interpreting Islam? Do you know what I mean? That means Muslims are being judged by an invisible system admin. You think making mistakes is easy for a Muslim? Their mistakes have divine consequences, right? So in some sense, let me tell you what it is. Islam within it holds the values that in some sense of an advanced being would have. The whole point of it is because everything is the creator, is the creation of the Lord of the worlds that you serve. In Islam we say Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, all praise due to the Lord of the worlds, you know. And La ilaha illallah means there is no God but God with a capital G, meaning that the system admin has no equivalent partner. When you put your forehead on the ground in prayer, you're not praying to something fathomable. You are praying to the unfathomable life force of all creation. In the same way your mind is acting the life force for your body, right? It's kind of realizing existence is not just the physical world. Perhaps it's the mind of a higher power. This is why I'm saying the species needs to unite, because we're missing out on so much advancement. And the thing I would say that there was this kind of story I heard. This was like a story, and like I don't take it seriously, but it's a story about how there was this young girl, right? And she would just, you know, this young girl who went and prayed, right? Young Christian girl. It's just a story, guys. It's not like a significant story, but because I'm a visual learner, the story conveyed something. And the story said that there was this girl and her mother told her to pray, and then she prayed, and then in some sense her mother asked the girl, what did you pray for? And he said, I prayed for the devil to be forgiven. And the mother said what? And the mother didn't understand what this sort of pattern of behavior in her child was, you know. And that child was so advanced that it was so close to the system admin that it asked the system admin to forgive chaos, to forgive hell. And there is a clue in the one of God's 99 names is the all-forgiving, as if at the end of ends God will show us it is all-forgiving. So it's that point where the human being notices that there is something more here going on. And you can see that the satanic urge is to stay in the limited, and in some sense, how do I say it? If you think this world is the final place, it's like saying your present self is the final you. The future will surprise you. So I really don't know. It's a matter between the system admin and a moderator, and mankind finds himself as a user in the simulated world, but we have the system admin privilege. Let me tell you this, if somebody's like, yo man, if we treat like extreme violence as the worst action a Muslim can do, what is the most greatest action that a Muslim can do? Let me just say it. Wonder about it, guys. We're in a dualistic reality. You got to wonder about the other side. You know, any person you have dehumanized, you have to wonder about what their humanity is. You know, that means you got to just for a second be like, what if my consciousness was replaced with their consciousness, how would I feel about reality? Okay, and what you're gonna feel is that we're all human beings trying to figure it out, and for me, it's realizing that God means that the world is not in our control. It's realizing that the stories of meaning that we overlay upon reality are occurring from a moment of perception that holds within it known variables and unknown variables. And if we just take the known variables seriously, we can, in some sense, simulate a world out of it. But it doesn't mean the unknown variables aren't there. You as a human being wondering about true advancement, you have to wonder about the most advanced concept, and then you got to wonder about how the most advanced concept emerges when the most advanced context is there. The context of you is the advanced civilization. Oh my God, guys! There's a comment. There's a message in the chat. Somebody says psychologist Sam Vaknin says many people who turn to religion are mentally ill or trauma driven. Holy shit! He believes he believes religion offers structure and identity to broken minds. What do you think about that? I don't get it. He believes religion offers structure and identity, and at the same time it says it's a sign of mental illness. Isn't giving structure and identity the sign of being an organized, disciplined human? So I don't know. I think the two sentences contradict. But if you want to know my opinion on the first, where he says, see, that person has to consider, I think there was a statistic that a percentage of the population will be mentally ill. And when you speak about mental illness, what do you mean? Do you mean there's biological brain damage? Okay, are you talking about that kind of mental illness, or are you talking about the mental illness we call ignorance? Then that's not an illness. It's just a limitation. Okay, so, and in some sense, it's not. Let me tell you what Voltaire would say to, what's the guy's name? Sam Vaknin. If Voltaire somehow could appear, it would say to Sam Vaknin that God is something. It's a necessary. It's like you don't understand. God is like a phase in life. Okay, it's something that you inevitably reach. Even if the concept of God was not created, it would be needed. Let me tell you what it is. God is about how are you archetypally, how are you positioning your hierarchy, right? And so to me, somebody thinking staying in an empty room is the sign of mental illness. Do you know what I mean? That means there's so much unexplained geometry and design on this planet, and somebody is like, yo man, anybody who wonders there's something more than the world room is crazy. Like, what kind of a scared, cowardice sort of perception is that, right? You fear what you don't understand, so you render what you fear as lesser, never understanding it. That is decay. That is mental decay. And let me tell you what it is. It depends on you as a being. It's like you're telling me, like, what's his name? Sam Vaknin can say anybody who plays the violin is crazy. Anybody who plays the piano has mental illness. And we'll be like, what are you saying, Sam? There's so many different people who play the instrument differently. There's so many people who engage the values within religion differently. Do you know what I mean? And so what Sam Vaknin is saying as a psychologist is that he has demonstrated his incapability to understand that meaning is self-generated, yo. Like if you have 8 billion people, imagine religions were artwork, right? And there's this art gallery of religions, okay? And imagine that what we're considering as religious people are people who are saying, yo man, this artwork is accurate, this artwork is saying something important, right? And then you're like, anybody who likes like Picasso is mentally ill. Do you know what I mean? It's like, no, it's all about that we all have different DNAs. To be able to brand a group of people as mentally ill, do you know what I'm saying? It's trying to, let me tell you, if you want to take it further, the species is storytelling in a simulation. And you want to bring up mental illness into this? You know, it's like we don't know what world we're in. We don't know what we truly are. We act like we're thoughts in a mind, but the world is a verb. And let me tell you what that psychologist was trying to do. He was trying to, in some sense, be acknowledged by like he was trying to copy someone in history. That's what that psychologist was doing. Do you know? There's so many ways you can explain reality, but ultimately what religion is saying is that this world room has a host. Just like, you tell me which one is mental illness, okay? Imagine there's a person, imagine your friend, okay, invites you to their house, like it's a house party, house gathering, okay? And imagine you invite your friends at a house gathering, okay? And one of your friends comes in the house, right? And starts telling everybody, guys, this house has no owner. This is everybody's house. And I'm gonna claim this part of the house is mine. And you're going to be like, okay, this person who was a guest in my home is acting like they are the owner of my home. And then they're calling me, the owner of the home, mentally ill, imagine. Do you know? Or you, the owner of the home, is mentally ill. So I'm saying it's like you have to wonder about the depth of reality, and you have to wonder about 8 billion different DNAs accessing the same view. And you got to also realize that mental illness is in some sense when a human being is in some sense trapped in a loop. Religion is saying truth is beyond form. Is that mentally ill? No. That's advanced, that's an advanced analysis on reality. It's like calling theoretical physicists, right, theorizing or saying that there's dark matter and dark energy and there's parts of the world we can't see. We're like, yo man, these guys are mentally ill. These guys are mentally ill. They think inside a black hole there's nothing. Do you know what I mean? So you can, like, do you know what I'm saying? You can say, yo man, the theoretical physicist went on an atheist-theist debate and told the atheist to told the theist to shut up, don't believe in abstraction, and then went back to their office and did theoretical physics. Do you know what I mean? Everything is an abstract. Your sense of self is an abstract. If you think believing in God is a mental illness, then you have to also think believing in your idea of self, which is as abstract as the idea of God, is a mental illness too. It doesn't make sense. This psychologist Van Vaknin, it's like there's too many contradictions. He's not even elegant in the way he's going about it. But at least this is my opinion. Maybe, who knows? Maybe he in some sense didn't realize that religion is saying that you can't access heaven if you don't care for the system admin. Do you understand? That's what religion is saying. It's saying in Islam, the biggest sin is shirk, which is treating anything else as a system admin, anything formed, simulated. And then the next biggest sin is to kill. That is a huge sin. That means it's like the beings, humans don't belong even to themselves. They belong to a grander process beyond their understanding. But in reality, my first answer to all questions in regards to the possibility of the future is that I don't know, and then the next is like how far I see. But reality is beyond Many simulations that are, there's something original within us that pierces through. What you call is a Muslim is just another member of the human species expressing their character. We're all simple humans. The moment you forget that, you can dehumanize people and brand them as ideas. To be a member of the human species means to have an awareness beyond the language that limits the species. So what is true advancement? It is to advance towards true awareness of being. That true awareness extends beyond ideological character games. That means the language is not the person. You know, if linguistically I can say, look at that Muslim, or look at that Christian, or look at that Hindu. Do you know? The language can paint a scenario. You know, it can even paint context, but is that person ultimately at the end of the day a human that's just wondering about what to do? We're all human. That's the point. And civilization is built on a sort of dishonesty of self, like the perceptions we communicate about ourselves. Usher yourself into an era where you care for your species before you care for, you know, nationalistic fragmentation of the species, and care for the human being. See everybody as a human being first, and then, you know, judge them based on you know, how do I say it? It's like realize that whatever a human being communicates or does is in some sense separate to what they deserve as just being human. That means there's nations at war right now. There's people dying on the planet due to human ignorance. You know, that's the issue. Human beings don't care about natural causes because we can't do anything about it. You know, but in some sense, unnatural causes, how dare you disturb a natural process? How dare world leaders, like the two nations that are fighting right now, how dare they, like in some sense all the world leaders and all the members of the human race have to look at the leaders that have chosen to fire missiles at each other and be like, hey, do you not understand that you do not, no nation has the right to cause the extinction of the species? It is not a decision for theirs to make, for them to make. And we have to save the souls of the leaders of the world before they destroy the world. You know what I mean? And we do that through first praying to the system admin and then becoming conscious of the world and all its aspects. Anyways, thank you for listening. I hope this talk has been interesting, and the whole point of it is that you are beyond the story games. Feel the honor of being a member of the human species prior to any ideological allegiance. The only allegiance that is permitted before the species is an allegiance to how we're actually a consciousness to existence prior to even just being the human species. The human species is what is found in the consciousness of existence. Anyways, thank you for listening. And may the future generations keep smiling. May we not forget that it's not just our ancestors wondering what we do with their legacy. It is the future generations wondering if they will be permitted to enter this realm. Live for the future. The world leaders are using the past as excuses to fight each other, but the future is a greater excuse to never fight. Anyways, thank you for listening, and it's all in God's hands. The system admin knows what we can never. Thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.